Hello and welcome to another video from me, Rough Swordsman Wargamer. As you can see on the table, we have Atlantic Chase, the Kriegsmarine against the Home Fleet, 1939 to 1942, a game designed by Jeremy White and published by GMT Games. Now this game has some mechanics in it I've never seen in any other wargame before, and also the amount of paper you get in this game is quite overwhelming and actually might put some people off giving it a go. We've got a 64-page rulebook. We've got some advanced battle rules. We've got another 62-page two-player scenario booklet and a 70-page solitaire scenario booklet. But also included in the game is this booklet, the tutorial booklet. So what I thought I'd do is to try and learn the game using the tutorials only, so at the end of them I can attempt a solitaire scenario. I'm going to work through this tutorial booklet and then sort of record the tutorial to see how I get on, and hopefully by the end of it I'll have enough information to have a go at a solitaire scenario. So this will be done not exactly in real time, but I'm going to read through the bits they want me to read and then record the tutorial to show you how I got on. So first things first. It says here, this interactive tutorial is organised as 10 mini scenarios or episode. It says play them in any order, but I'm going to play them 1 through 10. And each tutorial gives a snippet of the rules, fragment of the rules as it says, and you should read portions of the rule book as you go along. So another problem that might occur for some people, including myself, is that we're not reading the rule book from start to finish. We're picking out bits out of context, applying them to a tutorial, which may be a little bit difficult because you're not playing those rules as they would be in a proper game, but we'll see how we get on. It says before you go any farther, you should start with pages 2 to 9 in the rule book. Pages 2 to 9. There we go, getting started. So it's going to be telling you about the board, the components, and all that. Let's get on with that then. Okay, we've read those pages. Now we can move on. It's just telling you a little bit about how to set up. And at the end of each tutorial, there's an outcome which gives you a sort of taste of the narrative Jeremy is trying to put across in that tutorial. And as he quite rightly says down here in the design notes, that these war games aren't just games, they present serious subjects, and we need to learn a little bit about the history as we go along. Right. First scenario in the tutorial is something called Old Chums. And for this, we now need to read these pages in the rule book, and it says here on page 20, ignore the intel limit, whatever that is. Okay, I'll do that and I'll be back when I've finished. Okay, I've read those pages and I think we're ready to start the first tutorial, Old Chums, and I'll read from the tutorial book rather than show you. This is a race. An unofficial race of the sort brought on by, usually, healthy rivalries that exist within a navy. In this case, the Royal Navy. Captain Victor Crutchley commands the HMS Warspite, a ship built during the Great War and refitted for a modern war in the 1930s, in which this scenario is set. It has recently steamed across the Western Mediterranean and is heading out of Gibraltar for Portsmouth, where it will have its engines seen to. His friendly rival is Captain Harold Walker, an old chum from the Royal Naval College at Osborne. now commander of HMS Hood, a battlecruiser commissioned in 1920. The Hood has seen service along the Spanish coast during the Civil War and is due for refitting. It is now also heading to Portsmouth. And in this hypothetical race, Walker aims to prove his ship the better of Crutchley's. Right. In the How to Play section, it says set up the operation map as shown here, and I've done that. And also, it says place the ships on the British Task Force display, which we've done here. We've got the Warspite. We don't really actually even need to do this. It's just for sort of flavour. And here's the Hood. And as you can see, the Warspite is represented by the plain brown bits of wood, and the Hood by the ones with the single dash on them. And here we are. Now these might need explaining. This is a very unusual concept. These counters never actually get onto the board. It's all done through these things called trajectories. And that's like a route that the task force is taking, and incidentally a task force can be a number of ships or a single one, as in this case. So here we can see the trajectory for the Warspite, and here's the trajectory for the Hood. As it's a route, the ships can be anywhere along here. We have no idea, and when we play the proper game, I think it's more like you're looking at the map in a war room. You're not quite sure where the ships are. They're along here somewhere, and your job is to gather information to sort of narrow down this trajectory so you have a better idea where your task force is. And of course the enemy's trying to do the same to find out where your ships are, as are you. So bear that in mind. This is just the sort of route or trajectory of where the ships are. Now the rules I've read say that the player whose turn it is gets initiative, and when they get initiative they can do actions, and there are 9 different actions that a player can do, and these are shown on here. These are great handouts. And what this tutorial is teaching us is the pass action. When you pass, you're going to end your turn and give the initiative to the other player. But when you pass, you can do something called a time lapse. And that's like time has passed, more information, more intelligence has come in and gives you more up-to-date information as to the whereabouts of these task forces. When you do a time lapse, segments may be removed from either end of the trajectory, or from both ends. Can't take them from the middle and leave a gap. But the idea of this tutorial is to see who can remove the segments from the back end of the trajectory, if you like, to see who can get to Portsmouth first. So basically, the 2 captains are going to be passing backwards and forwards and removing segments from their trajectories to see who can get there first. However, normally, when you have the initiative, it passes on to the opposing player. But in this case, you're passing it on to another British task force. In other words, it's like we're playing a 2-player all-British game, which wouldn't happen normally. So in this tutorial, old Crutchley has the initiative in the Warspite, and he passes and will perform a time lapse. And the time lapse table is on the board here, but it's also on the handout here. And you can see that's the number of segments you can move depending whether or not the weather is good or bad. And in this scenario, it is good. So we have to see how fast old Crutchley's ship is. The Warspite has a little S here, which tells us it's a slow ship. And slow ships can remove 2 segments for their time lapse. There we go. 1, 2. This now tells us that the trajectory is shortened and it's now somewhere along here. Once you pass, that's your turnover. It goes over to the other player, or in this case the other British ship, which is the Hood. The Hood will pass and can do a time lapse. The Hood though... Oh, I've forgotten something. Just about to pass to the other ship, and I forgot. When you pass and the initiative goes to the other player, you have to roll for the weather. And you do this every time the initiative changes. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but here's the weather check table here. And we're at good weather. So we're going to throw a D6. If we throw a 6, it will change to bad weather. And to be honest, this is the only way really that the slower Warspite could win, because in bad weather, as you can see here, it says throw a die. So the Warspite can only remove 2 segments, but throwing a D6 can remove up to 6. This is to sort of emulate that the Warspite is doing better in the bad weather than the Hood. So let's see if we throw a 6. No, 2, it stays good weather. It is now the Hood, who is fast. Hopefully you can see that there, the little F. And they can get rid of 4 segments. There we go. They have passed. We're back to the Warspite. Roll for weather. No, stays good. They can only remove 2. As you can see, this is a very simple scenario. Even I can understand it. We're just getting used to this time lapse when somebody passes. So back to the Hood. Oh, that was going to be a 6 there. 1, no. But there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. What happens when you remove the last segment is that trajectory turns into something called a station, this cylinder here. And that tells us the exact position of that ship. A trajectory, as I said, could be anywhere along here, but as soon as it turns into a station, that's where it is. And so Captain Walker has won with the Hood. And at the end, as I said earlier, there are outcomes. So the Hood won. And it says Captain Crutchley was hardly surprised, but smiled nonetheless when he received the signal, "Can't wait forever, stop. Drank yours, sorry old chum, full stop." So that tutorial has taught us one of the actions player can do, the pass action, and that enables that player to do a time lapse on each of his task forces. Incidentally, it doesn't apply in this scenario, but when you remove the last segments to place a station, that station can be placed on any of those spaces that those last segments were. But no good for us, we wanted to get into Portsmouth. There we go. That's tutorial number 1. Tutorial number 2, saber rattling. And for this tutorial, we need to look at rules on page 43 and 44. And here they are, not much to read here, but it appears to be all about trajectories. So we'll be back in a moment. Tutorial 2, saber rattling. It is August 1939. In preparation against Britain and France, who stubbornly assert Poland's right to independence, the Panzerschiff, armoured ship, Admiral Graf Spee, is dispatched to the North Atlantic to await orders should war be declared. The Outmark, a tanker, has already steamed through the English Channel disguised as a commercial vessel, with orders to rendezvous with the Graf Spee. It will fuel that Panzerschiff for a long voyage, ultimately taking her to the South Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. Historical note, after Rendezvous and after this episode, the Graf Spee will bag 9 merchant ships along its cruise, 50,000 tons, before it will meet its own demise in the estuary of the Rio de la Plata off Uruguay. Okay, so we've got the Graf Spee represented by this, and the tanker, the Altmark, with the plain segments. The Graf Spee starts as a station, so that's where that ship actually is, and it says in the setup you can either have it here or over off board. There's a port box for Wilhelmshaven, and one of the things you can do is to shift them back and forth between the actual port hex or the port box. There are advantages and disadvantages to both, which I dare say we'll learn about as the tutorials progress. But for now, I'm going to leave it here as a station. The tanker is a trajectory, so it's somewhere along here, and we've got to do time lapses on that to get it to the rendezvous. And of course the Graf Spee's got to get from there to here, and it says we've got to start off by making a trajectory action. Now of course the shortest way is through the channel, but it does say for this tutorial you're not permitted to place a segment in a hex with a British port or air base. So we can't go through here and we can't scarp a flow. Ordinarily this is a legal move, but will trigger something called intel attachments, which they say we'll learn about in the next tutorial. So for now, no. So we're going to go the long way round. Now one of the outcomes asks if we go through Bergen. So what we'll do is, I haven't looked at them, we'll actually go through Bergen when we start our turn, and the Graf Spee starts off by doing a trajectory action, which, as I said, is on the player aid there. So place trajectory segments. And you still keep initiative, it says. Now because we're doing a trajectory action, this will disappear and become a trajectory. So we're going to start here, and we need to end up here. So we'll go through Bergen, as I said. Go around here, around by the Faroe Islands, out into the Atlantic. Now I think we'll go one more and then come down. Again, this is a very simple tutorial. There we are. Now the only thing is these trajectories can't be more than 15 segments long. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Unlucky for some, we're all right. We've done our trajectory action. There's nothing else we can do. We're going to pass, and that means we can do our time lapse. Now, the weather starts good in this scenario, and the Graf Spee is a medium speed ship. And on our time lapse table here, we can see that we are allowed with good weather to remove 3 segments. So we'll do that. And we're off. 1, 2, 3. So the ship isn't here anymore. It's now just somewhere along here. Quite a way to go. That's the end of the Graf Spee's turn. It is now the Altmark. They're not doing anything except passing because they want to get rid of these segments with a time lapse, but they are very slow But before we look on the table, nearly forgot again, we have to check for weather. Every time initiative changes, you check for weather. And on a 6, this will turn from good to bad. 1, no. So very slow is the out mark. And very slow means just 2 segments. But they're trundling. Now, they are now somewhere north or northwest of the Azores. That's the end of Outmark's turn. It's now Graf Spee, so weather check. 2, no, it stays good. And they're medium, so 3 come off here. As I say, again, very easy scenario. Just to get you making a trajectory and then doing some time lapse. That's it. Back to the outmark. Oh, that nearly was a 6. But it's a 4. So good weather prevails. And very slow means just 2 more segments off. But they are nearing their rendezvous. That's their lot. Back to the Graf Spee. 4. So that's another 3. 1, 2, 3. We're back with the Altmark. They're going to remove their last 2, but we'll see if the weather changes. It does not. So the 2 segments come off. And as there are no trajectory segments left, that turns into a station, signalling that the ship is actually there. Back to the Graf Spee. Now the weather changes. Too bad. And that means when they pass, as they are going to do now, they're doing a time lapse, but they will throw a D6 to see how many segments they remove. So if they get a 4 or more, we've done it. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last segment gone. Turns into a station. They've met up. And the Graf Spee is refueled. And that's the end of the scenario. And I nearly forgot to read the outcome. Here's the outcome. Did the Graf Spee task force have a segment in the Bergen Hex? Yes, we did. The sight of the unusual ship was remarkable. So much so that Admiral Dyson of the Royal Norwegian Navy was alerted. Since the ship made no effort to pass through the inner leads, however, the dilemma of maintaining neutrality never arose. It would be a different story in February when the Altmark would return bearing the Admiral Graf Spee's 300 prisoners, the spoils of a successful cruise. On her way back to Germany, the Altmark would navigate into Bergen's harbour, seeking shelter from British cruisers. This Altmark incident, as it would be known, would hasten Operation Weserübung, Hitler's scheme to grab Norwegian ports and air bases, thus securing Germany's iron ore supply. And in brackets we've got end scenarios, so there's obviously some scenarios coming up which deal with this incident. And I think we'll leave the video there. We've learnt a couple of actions, the trajectory and the pass actions. But as I said earlier, I think the next tutorials will start to get a little bit more involved, which I'm looking forward to. So I hope that was informative and you enjoyed it. If you did and you haven't done so already, it would be great if you would consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help. Pushing the like button of the video helps tremendously as well. And if you want to be informed of other content the channel uploads, push the bell. Leave a comment. What do you think? I know it's been out a little while, this game, but this is my first opportunity to sort of get stuck into it. And I thought, why don't I try and have a go at learning it just using the tutorials and sharing my experience with that with you. So tell me what you think. Are you already playing the game? This looks a cracking game, by the way. And I'm looking forward to getting stuck into the rest of the tutorials. But let me know. I'll have to read them. Thanks as always to my subscribers. Thank you very much indeed. And one last thing before I go. If you wish to support the channel a little bit further, well, now you can buy the channel a coffee. And all those coffees do indeed go towards new content for the channel to upload. If you want to check that out and see what that's all about, I'll leave a link in the description, and thank you. So until next time, when we continue our playthrough of the tutorials for Atlantic Chase, designed by Jeremy White and published by GMT Games, as always, you take care and goodbye.